course, the first obvious one is that error management is not necessarily not a negative phenomenon, and that it's something that is worthwhile to focus on, to zoom in on, as a source of creativity, as a source of discovering new opportunities. At the same time, as it is important to pay attention to it, and so that error is not something that we should just avoid and minimize, but that we should face and embrace.
The important thing is an error itself may not lead to a bad result in the end. But what we know is if you have a bad result, it is almost always caused by an error, and usually not just one error, but a number of errors. And I think what is important, or what makes the role of error management so important, is that it creates the prerequisite for avoiding failure. Because if you understand that an error is just an occurrence, a deviation, but if it's captured in time, it has no negative consequences. Whereas a failure, you clearly have something that has gone completely wrong, and therefore I think it's the whole idea about error management is it helps organizations to become safer, to work better. I think that's the whole thing of notion that comes out of the research for the high reliability organizations like military, aviation, and so on, that they understand we have to avoid disasters. And one way to do that, one important way, is to deal with errors in time.
I would say that the focus is very much on errors in organizations, which means errors that happen, that are committed, perhaps, of course, eventually by an individual, but mostly by individuals in an organizational context. Which make that the organizational analysis and the organizational lens is an important one to deal with the management of the error. So I think that's I think is the first, let's say, general type of errors that we look at. Secondly, of course, we have a particular interest to look at what their role could be as creative leaders. In leading, an error management approach or an error management perspective.
Well, I'm a little bit hesitant in admitting that, but I come from Berlin, from Germany, and we all know that unbelievable atrocities have been started in this country here. And what is always a source of curiosity for me is how is it possible that people knowingly follow something that is so contrary to their cultural background, cultural upbringing, and ignoring all this and just following one direction, which is so obviously wrong. Yes, I admit a lot of stuff is, with hindsight was wrong and so on, but quite honestly, there's so much that was so visible that was going against the cultural norms that people have been growing up, and they accepted that. And for me, that's something that I would say I would like to spend much more time understanding what makes people follow these kind of traits that are so wrong. Which is not easy, and I think there's lots of data, but I specifically focus on, for example, the military leadership. And they ignored all this. And this is something that's making me nervous. How is that possible that people with that background were capable of doing such bad things?